On September 18th, 2015, the EPA accused Volkswagen of installing cheat software in 11 million diesel vehicles. Within 48 hours, the stock crashed 23%. $17 billion in market value gone. When executives testified before Congress, the explanation was breathtaking. Quote, "This was a couple of software engineers who put this in for whatever reason, quote, 11 million cars, 7 years of fraud, a couple of engineers." This is the story of how Volkswagen, the company that had just become the world's largest automaker, got caught running the most elaborate emissions scam in automotive history, and how a $70,000 university study brought down an empire worth more than $30 billion. To understand the crash, you need to understand the road that led there. The archive opens in 1937. Adolf Hitler wanted a people's car for ordinary Germans. He commissioned Ferdinand Porsche to design it. The result was the Beetle, a small, air-cooled automobile that would become one of the most iconic cars in history. After the war, a British Army officer revived the bombed-out factory in Wolfsburg. The Beetle became a symbol of German recovery, then a countercultural icon in America. By 1972, it had surpassed the Ford Model T as the best-selling car in history. By 2015, Volkswagen had evolved into something else entirely. The company had swallowed Audi, Porsche, Bentley, Bugatti, Lamborghini, and a dozen other brands. Factories operated in 31 countries. Dealerships existed in 153. Annual revenue exceeded 200 billion euros, and in the first half of that year, they finally achieved what they'd been chasing for decades. Volkswagen Group sold 5.04 million vehicles. Toyota sold 5.02 million. For the first time ever, Volkswagen was the world's largest automaker. But America remained a problem. Despite global dominance, Volkswagen held just 2% of the US market. Americans bought Toyotas. They bought Ford trucks. They didn't buy German compacts in significant numbers. CEO Martin Winterkorn had made conquering America his personal mission. He set an ambitious goal: triple American market share to 6% by 2018. He opened a factory in Tennessee. He redesigned the Passat specifically for American tastes: bigger, cheaper. His weapon for differentiation was diesel. In Europe, more than half of new cars ran on diesel. Europeans understood that diesel engines delivered better fuel economy and more torque than gasoline. In America, diesel had an image problem. Americans associated it with smoke-belching buses and roaring 18-wheelers. Not passenger cars, Volkswagen's pitch was to change that perception entirely. They called it "Clean Diesel." The marketing campaign ran for 7 years. Super Bowl commercials showed grandmothers discussing diesel while demonstrating that the exhaust was clean enough to wear white near. Online campaigns targeted environmentally conscious consumers. Print ads in upscale magazines. The slogans were specific and bold. Their cars reduced nitrogen oxide emissions by 90%. They were 50-state compliant. They produced fewer NOx emissions than comparable gasoline engines. In 2009, the Volkswagen Jetta TDI won Green Car of the Year. The award legitimized everything. Here was third-party validation that diesel could be both powerful and clean. Volkswagen had cracked the code. Sales grew steadily. By 2014, diesel models accounted for roughly 25% of Volkswagen's American sales. For some dealerships, it was closer to 1/3. There was just one problem. The cars weren't actually clean. American emission standards for nitrogen oxide were far stricter than European standards. The US limit was 31 milligrams per kilometer. The European Union allowed 80 milligrams, nearly 3 times more lenient. To meet the American standard without sacrificing performance or fuel economy, Volkswagen's engineers faced a difficult choice. They could install expensive emissions equipment that would raise the car's price by thousands of dollars and decrease the performance that customers expected. They could accept lower fuel economy numbers that would undermine their marketing claims. Or they could find another way. They found another way. Volkswagen engineers developed what regulators would later call a defeat device. The software was elegant in its deception. It monitored steering wheel position, vehicle speed, engine operation duration, and barometric pressure. When these inputs matched the precise parameters of an emissions test, car stationary on a dynamometer, wheels spinning but steering wheel fixed, the software activated full pollution controls. The car would pass. Nitrogen oxide emissions stayed within legal limits, but the moment normal driving resumed, the software detected the change. Steering wheel moving, vehicle actually traveling, barometric pressure shifting with altitude changes. The software recognized that the test was over and throttled back the emissions controls. Performance improved, fuel efficiency improved, and nitrogen oxide emissions increased by up to 40 times the legal limit. The scheme began in 2008 with the 2009 model year vehicles. For 7 years, Volkswagen sold nearly 500,000 diesel vehicles in America. The Jetta, the Passat, the Golf, the Beetle, the Audi A3. Each one programmed to lie. The irony is that they got caught by accident. In late 2012, a non-profit organization called the International Council on Clean Transportation wanted to prove something simple. American diesel cars were cleaner than European ones because US regulations were stricter. They needed data to support advocacy for tighter European standards. They commissioned researchers at West Virginia University's Center for Alternative Fuels, Engines and Emissions to conduct real-world road tests. The grant was $70,000. The assignment seemed completely routine. The researchers tested 3 vehicles, a Volkswagen Jetta, a Volkswagen Passat and a BMW X5. They strapped portable emissions measurement equipment to the cars and drove them across California, from San Diego to Los Angeles to San Francisco. Different elevations, different traffic conditions, different temperatures. Real-world driving, the BMW performed exactly as expected. Emissions stayed at or below certification levels. The Volkswagens did not. The Jetta exceeded the nitrogen oxide limit by 15 to 35 times depending on driving conditions. The Passat exceeded it by 5 to 20 times. The researchers were so convinced their equipment was malfunctioning that they recalibrated everything and tested the cars 3 more times. Same results every time. Daniel Carter, the lab's interim director, later told reporters they did so much testing that they couldn't repeatedly be doing the same mistake again and again. Something was wrong with the Volkswagens, but the researchers didn't know what. In May 2014, they published their findings and reported them to the California Air Resources Board and the EPA. Regulators started asking questions. Volkswagen's response was to stall, deflect, and lie. The company issued a voluntary recall in December 2014, claiming software updates would fix technical glitches. Regulators tested the updated cars. They were still polluting at illegal levels. Volkswagen blamed other technical issues. Regulators tested again. Still failing. For over a year, Volkswagen engineers met with American regulators, looked them in the eye, and concealed the existence of the defeat device. Internal documents would later reveal the depth of the deception. In March 2014, senior engineers learned about the West Virginia study results. They formed a task force. But the task force's mission wasn't to fix the problem. Supervisors decided to pursue a strategy of concealing the defeat device in responding to questions from US regulators while appearing to cooperate. They approved scripts for employees to follow during regulatory meetings. The scripts instructed continued concealment. Memos discussing the diesel issue reached CEO Martin Winterkorn in May 2014. Another memo reached him in November, referencing costs of approximately 20 million euros for the diesel issue in North America. By summer 2015, regulators were running out of patience. They threatened to withhold certification for 2016 model year vehicles. On September 3, 2015, with no more lies left and no more delays possible, Volkswagen finally admitted the truth. The defeat device was real. It was intentional. It was installed in 11 million vehicles worldwide. 15 days later, the EPA went public. The response was immediate and devastating. Volkswagen's stock crashed 18% on the first day, then nearly 20% on the second day. More than 25 billion euros in market value evaporated in 48 hours. The company suspended sales of all diesel vehicles in America. CEO Martin Winterkorn released a video statement. The irregularities with diesel engines oppose everything that Volkswagen stands for. 5 days later, he resigned. His statement was surgically worded. I am shocked by the events of the past few days. Above all, I am stunned that misconduct on such a scale was possible in the Volkswagen Group. As CEO, I accept responsibility for the irregularities that have been found in diesel engines. Then, the escape clause. I am doing this in the interests of the company, even though I am not aware of any wrongdoing on my part. Shocked, stunned, not aware of any wrongdoing. The CEO of the world's largest automaker claimed he had no idea that 11 million of his cars were programmed to cheat. 2 weeks later came the congressional testimony that defined the scandal. Michael Horn, CEO of Volkswagen's American operations, appeared before the House Oversight Committee. Under oath, he delivered the explanation that would become infamous. This was a couple of software engineers who put this in for whatever reason. This was not a corporate decision. There was no board meeting that approved this. A couple of software engineers, responsible for defeat devices in 11 million vehicles across 7 model years. Responsible for a scheme requiring coordination across engine development, software engineering, and regulatory compliance departments. Responsible for decisions that executives had been briefed about in memos for over a year. Congressman Chris Collins responded directly. I cannot accept Volkswagen's portrayal of this as something by a couple of rogue software engineers. Congressman Joe Barton, a trained engineer whose daughter drove a Volkswagen Beetle, asked Horn whether it was possible that top executives didn't know about something this significant. Horn paused. I agree, he said. It's very hard to believe. The financial reckoning was unprecedented in automotive history. In June 2016, Volkswagen agreed to pay up to $14.7 billion to settle civil charges in the United States alone. The settlement required the company to buy back nearly 500,000 vehicles at their pre-scandal market value. Average buyback cost, roughly $29,000 per vehicle. That was 185 times the historic average penalty for emissions violations. The company committed an additional $4.7 billion to environmental mitigation and clean vehicle infrastructure. In January 2017, Volkswagen pleaded guilty to 3 federal felonies: conspiracy to defraud the United States, wire fraud, and violation of the Clean Air Act. The criminal fine was $2.8 billion, the largest criminal penalty ever levied against an automaker in American history. By June 2020, total costs had reached more than $30 billion in fines, penalties, settlements, and buyback costs. Former CEO Martin Winterkorn was indicted in the United States on fraud and conspiracy charges. He never appeared. He remains a fugitive, wanted by the EPA. His German trial finally began in September 2024 before being suspended due to health issues. How did competitors handle similar pressure? Toyota faced its own crisis starting in 2009 when reports of unintended acceleration led to the recall of over 9 million vehicles. Accusations of cover-ups swirled. Congressional hearings demanded answers. The total cost reached approximately $5 billion. But Toyota's response was fundamentally different. CEO Akio Toyoda flew to Washington and testified before Congress personally. I am deeply sorry for any accidents that Toyota drivers have experienced, he said, bowing in the Japanese custom of apology. No defeat devices, no blaming engineers. Toyota accepted responsibility, fixed the cars, and moved forward. Within 3 years, their reputation had largely recovered. BMW competed in the exact same American diesel market with the exact same strict emissions standards. Their solution was different from Volkswagen's. They invested in legitimate selective catalytic reduction technology. It cost more to engineer. The cars cost more to build. But the BMW X5 diesel that West Virginia University tested alongside those Volkswagens, it passed. Without cheating, BMW never paid more than $30 billion in fines. One company engineered their way to compliance, the other engineered their way around it. What exactly went wrong? It came down to three mistakes. First, Volkswagen confused short-term engineering with long-term strategy. The defeat device solved an immediate technical challenge, but created existential corporate risk. Proper emissions equipment would have cost hundreds of dollars per vehicle. The scandal cost more than $30 billion. Second, they assumed they would never get caught. For 7 years, the software fooled regulators testing cars on laboratory dynamometers. But they never anticipated that independent researchers with portable equipment would strap sensors to the cars and drive them on actual roads. The arrogance was assuming no one would ever check real-world conditions. Third, when caught, they compounded the lie. For over a year after the West Virginia study, Volkswagen had opportunities to come clean. Instead, they issued fake recalls, blamed technical glitches, formed task forces dedicated to concealment, and approved scripts for deceiving regulators. Each lie multiplied the eventual penalty. The couple of software engineers' defense collapsed under the weight of evidence. Internal investigations revealed that warnings had reached senior management years before the scandal broke. Supervisors approved concealment scripts. The scheme required coordination across multiple departments over 7 years. The idea that rogue engineers acted alone was, as Congressman Collins put it, impossible to believe. Martin Winterkorn claimed he was stunned. Michael Horn blamed a couple of engineers while admitting under oath that even he found his own explanation hard to believe. The company that built its global reputation on German engineering precision couldn't explain how 11 million cars got programmed to cheat without anyone at the top knowing. You can cheat a test, you can fool regulators for 7 years, you can program 500,000 cars to lie. But at the end of the day, a couple of researchers with portable equipment and a $70,000 grant can bring down the world's largest automaker. That's the crash for today. Subscribe to Car Crash Capitalism if you want to see the decisions they can't take back. Share this with someone who drives a diesel. The next crash is already in the archive.